Welcome to a Revolution to Lead podcast. We bring you daily wisdom and inspiration from the revolution, filled with the greatest minds and talents of all time. When Jesus walked out of his tomb 2,000 plus years ago, he began a revolution against an old way of life. Jesus is not just offering us another self-help strategy, but a brand new reality that is overthrowing the world as we know it. This podcast is all about how we tap into and live out this new reality in order to live a revolutionary life. So our scripture from today is going to be one of the most inspiring verses in the Bible. You're sure to know it. It's going to be Leviticus chapter 1, verse 1. And this is what it says. And Yahweh called to Moses from inside the tent. Now, I bet you're wondering, why didn't he just read John 3:16? And then you're wondering, because that definitely is not the most inspirational verse in all of Scripture. However, by the end of our couple minutes today, I want this in your mind to actually be one of the most inspiring scriptures, the most hopeful scriptures in all the Bible. You see, because this is a moment where God has told Moses to build him this very luxurious tent. And this is going to be the place that is like a portable church, where as Moses and the Israelites journey through the desert to the promised land, wherever they are, when they stop to set up camp, they will set up this tent. And Moses has built it. He's got others Moses has got the Israelites to build it. And now God has fallen. His presence has shone inside the tent. It was an awesome scene at the end of Leviticus. However, we get to the last couple verses of in Exodus, and Moses cannot enter the tent. Let me say that again. The last couple verses of Exodus, God falls, his presence is physically shown in what they call the tabernacle, but then Moses cannot enter the tent. So now what's going to happen? They built this tent. This is supposed to be where Israel meets with God and God lives among their community. So now what? Well, Leviticus is the answer to that. And this verse shows that God is reaching out to humanity to be in communion and relationship with them. You see, the actual Hebrew word that is the book of Leviticus, as we know it, this is what the Hebrew title is, Vayikra, which means and called. And that's not a very great title. That's the literal translation. But in our Bibles, you'll see it translates to the Lord called. Because you see, in Hebrew, the sentence structure is what we would call backwards. Therefore, the Israelites know, however, that this word in any other sentence would simply mean and called or and someone called. Right here, it means and Yahweh called. And that is just profound when you think about it. That God is calling to humanity to enter relationship with him. That God is going to walk humanity through a process to enter his presence in that, so they can reunite as they were united in the Garden of Eden. Leviticus is the pathway of the Old Testament, of this beautiful covenant of grace that now we have a new chapter in Jesus. However, this was the start. And yesterday we talked about how the animal sacrifices are a beautiful picture of Jesus' sacrifice. Now we're getting into the text of Leviticus here. And as we see, what this book is going to be all about is God calling out to humanity and welcoming them in a relationship. However, what we must now see and manage is How does a sinful, rebellious people enter the presence of a holy and good God? And you see, when we think of, oh, this is just a list of rules and God is so mean and this is awful. No, no, no. The same God we see in the New Testament is the same God of the Old. God didn't have a mind shift change. He didn't have a character shift. His character is the same graceful, beautiful, amazing God is found right here in the Old Testament in Leviticus. And the book of Leviticus is a sheer act of grace on God's part. That unlike other religions in the area and all around the world at the point of this original audience, they must guess about what their God is doing. They must guess if God is pleased with them. They must guess if they're doing the right thing. But not Yahweh's people, not Israel. God gives them these rituals. God gives them these sacrifices so they know how to properly encounter God. And that, my friends, is what we call grace, because they did not deserve this. They were rebelling before this point. That's why Moses couldn't enter. But God makes a way to push their sin to the side until he comes himself in the New Testament in Jesus to defeat sin and death once and for all. If you're enjoying this podcast, please rate, subscribe, and share with a friend, because the revolutionary life is not about self-enlightenment, but about changing the world around you. And don't forget about my NFT on OpenSea. Join a revolutionary community with exclusive content to help you live the revolutionary life. So go out today and be revolutionary.